Welcome back, astronomical learners. And I hope you are starting to have a wonderful month of December. I know I've been away for a little bit. I have been taking finals, which I can successfully say I passed. So by this time next year, I'll at least have an associate's degree to my name, which I've been working very hard on, still working on my bachelor's. But I just wanted to start a conversation because as I've kind of been out, I've been kind of rethinking what can I do coming up in 2026 to help literacy or help people when all of these news articles constantly say, oh, our kids can't read, our adults can't read, nobody knows how to read. And then even if they do know how to read, they usually don't understand reading comprehension, they don't have media literacy, they don't have financial literacy. I wanted to show you two books today and one little tool that I use. And it's just a piece of paper. But essentially, I want to use these two books to explain the majority of our ancestors, if you live in America, how they learned English and how to learn to read, number one. But number two, also how you can use things in your everyday life to foster the goal of literacy. So if you're ready, let's get started. All right, so this book I have to preference. Actually, my husband thrifted it for me. We were at a thrift store and he found it because I don't know if you ever thrifted books, but if you see a book that says McGuffrey Reader or Appleton School Readers or any kind of reader, it's kind of cool to look at and just flip through. And I was looking for one because you hear about it in these podcasts, but I'd never seen one or touched one or owned one. So this is my first reader that I ever owned. And then another one I found is a primary language lessons. Now, I will say these aren't perfect, and there was no actual perfect world of education at that time. Education was very complicated in these different eras. But also, I'm going to use a piece of notebook paper or printer paper to show you how to foster that fluency and prosody. So let's start with the Appleton's School Reader.
All right, so as you can see here, this is Appleton School Readers, and I'll open it up. I have to be gentle just because it is from 1882. But you'll see here it is a third reader made by William T. Harris, who is the founder of Gifted Education and a superintendent of school districts in St. Louis, Missouri. Then there's Andrew Rickhoff and Mark Bailey. So as you open it up, it's going to tell you from the authors to the teacher. This series of readers is a result of practical experience of many years. The books can be used in the same ways as other readers, but the following suggestions may to be some value. The phonic method to be continued. Though it has been found that many phonic method gives the pupil a better mastery of hard words than any other, yet at this age of his progress he has still many obstacles to overcome. To meet these with advantage, his knowledge of the power of letters must be extended and perfected. He must continue to spell words by sound and note silent letters. His attention must be directed to peculiar combinations of letters by which given sounds are represented. The table of sounds on page 209 should become as familiar to the child as his letters. Then they talk about reading matter, reading lessons, language lessons, and how to read, and spelling lessons as well. So you see here it has a story, and it says copy the following story and write the words in place of the dashes. So it was always immersed in mostly words. You see here there's not a lot of pictures. If there are illustrations, it's from like an excerpt of the story. It's not the full story told just in pictures. But I wanted to go and show you that chart they were talking about. But when you come here, it says the difficulty of spelling English words arises from uncertainty in regard to the combinations used to represent elementary sounds. For instance, the sound eh is represented in 11 different ways in the words ebb, dead, again, aesthetics.
People
Many
already
not
learn.
to spell all words in which the sounds are represented by the usual combinations of letter by seeing them in print whenever he reads a book or newspaper. A list of words to spell should not be cumbered by the introduction of easy words, such as contain only the usual combinations, but should have only those that are difficult because of the exceptional combinations of letters used. The spelling book then may be a very small book containing about 1,500 words. This small list of words should be so thoroughly learned that the pupil can spell orally or write every word in it without hesitation. This can be accompanied by the pupil of 12 years of age in 6 months' time having one lesson of 20 words a day to write from dictation and using every fifth day for the oral view of all words from the beginning. This thorough drill on a few words will train the child's faculty of observing unusual combinations of letters, and his memory thus will make him a good speller without spending any further time over the spelling book. His memory will absorb and retain hard words wherever he sees them. That's called orthographic mapping. And then here on 209, we have the table of sounds represented by letter and combinations. And then we have common words. So it says here, which I think is interesting, for Appleton's readers, some distinguishing features. Modern methods made easy. Education is a progressive science. Methods of the last century must be discarded. The question, how shall we teach reading, is fully answered in these books, and teachers who have adopted and followed this method have greatly improved their schools. They also had science primers, history primers, literature primers. All right, so next I wanted to take a look at primary language lessons. So this is American Book Company, and they're not always the same as the previous book. I wouldn't say they've always aligned with structured literacy. Sometimes it's more whole language, but this book is specifically about second and third grades, which in this time and age, they would already move away from learning to read and move towards reading to learn. So this I think is very important because it points out how this was from the normal schools, which if you know any history about education in America, normal teacher training was a way to streamline teacher training so that the majority of teachers who at that time were probably more female didn't have to go to extensive colleges. They could go to a normal school, learn the basics of essentially what Thomas Jefferson put in the Constitution, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic, so the kids could get a basic education no matter where they were. And this was obviously the Midwest because it was Kansas. But anyway, so this book says it's intended for second and third grades. It has assignment lessons, dictation exercises, selections to be memorized, drawing, pictures, nature and observation lessons, lessons on troublesome forms. But for me, it's interesting because from what I've studied, what we would call this today is multisensory, or a lot of what most people want to go back to. So when people say, hey, we're trying to, go back to the basics, a lot of people will push back and say, no, we don't need to go to, something that's so archaic, but I don't think you understand what it actually means. And a lot of it is connected to what most people would say is probably new. So I wanted to use this as an example. So here we have a picture. And I would say you could easily do this in a homeschool setting or in a public school setting. Let's say you're looking at pictures on Google Images, or if you're, using Google Arts and Culture to look at a museum, or if you're going to a physical museum and you see a picture, or maybe you're looking at a picture book. The oral importance of communication and language lessons is underrated. So this is where it's spelled out here. So some things that you wanted to talk about I'll try and get my light to help this look better. But anyway, so you want to say, what do you see in the picture? Oh, yeah, we see some squirrels, we see a tree, we see a bird, we see some nuts, right? Where are the squirrels? Obviously up in a tree, not on the ground. What are they doing? Talk about, oh, yeah. And these are in my other video where I talked about where, what, when, how, why. These question words are a prerequisite for reading and spelling and helping generate ideas for students. So then when it comes to using their brain to explain something or form an opinion, they're not just regurgitating what you want them to say. You actually give them open question words to communicate and talk. Now move on. It says lesson 2, copy the following. And this usually should have been modeled on like a chalkboard. Today you could model it on a whiteboard, or you could put it up. You could type it even on a PowerPoint slide and say, hey, let's copy from the screen or the board, whatever you have. So 2 squirrels lived in a hollow tree. And I would say even look, these aren't like just decodable words. These are more advanced words. You can copy down a word that maybe you can't fully read yet, or maybe a word that you can't fully spell yet, but if you get that handwriting practice, it will help build that orthographic mapping of, oh, I've seen it, I've written it, I've used my penmanship to write it, and it helps generate that memory. So also we have copy these sentences, and just like you saw with the previous book, they have a blank and then they want the students to fill in that blank. And then what I think is interesting is most of the time we see this in whole language, but I think there is an importance to memorization and introducing it in a way where it's not scary. But this is a selection to be memorized. So this is a short piece, but this is working on your working memory and recall. So a lot of teachers complain today of these students don't remember what I told them 5 seconds ago. Parents complain about that too, right? Like, oh, I just told you that rule. Why can't you remember it? Because it's a muscle. It's a thing that has to be practiced. Even something as simple as learning a song, you are using your memory to remember those song lyrics. So I think the skill of learning memory, we shouldn't take it for granted. We shouldn't assume that everybody develops that skill. It has to be taught and it has to be practiced in order to get mastery of this skill. Another thing is you have an observation lesson. So you have a word, and then you ask your student, when does the frost come? What does the frost do to plants? What plants are killed first by the frost? What plants last the longest in the fall? This is a conversation. This is exploratory. This is exactly what you should be having, not just question and answer, fill in the blank, use a worksheet, copy and paste, but actually having conversations with students. And then we have for dictation. So this necessarily isn't just, oh, let me say it and you write it. Dictation is about pronouncing the word the best you can. So it might even be emphasizing each word as you say it. The moon is round and bright. Helping that enunciation, because if you can see it, you can say it, you should be able to spell it. And then again, we have a selection to be memorized. You have another fill the blanks. You have another picture lesson. Okay, it's a more detailed picture now. You have more animals. You have more things to talk about. But what I really wanted to show you also today is letter writing. Now, I found this book and I thought this was so cool because I'm located in Georgia, but also, when you talk about letter writing and you assume that people just knew how to do it, I don't think people emphasize enough that they had visual aids. They had a small, like my hand is bigger than this textbook. They had small textbooks they could hold in their hands and they had a reference. So let's say you weren't even on lesson 49 yet in class, but you wanted to write a letter to Santa for Christmas. You had this as a guide to know, oh, okay, this is a template. So I put my location, the date, I put dear whoever, I write my letter, I put my salutation and my name, and then if I want to mail it, I put their name, the address, location, and I put the stamp in the right hand corner. These are important. So it's not like these students were just told, hey, you know how to do it. They were actually shown explicitly how to do certain things they were asked of them. So if we go down here, I wanted to show you that they have more oral and written and conversation and production. So I want to use this page as an example. So I told you I could help you read not just faster or more accurate, but let's say this is too overwhelming. This is too much text on a page. I want you to first find a piece of notebook paper and then fold it in half. I don't mind if it's vertical, horizontal, hamburger, hot dog, I don't mind. Just fold it in half so that it takes up most of the page, right? And then you can use another piece of paper. Completely cover up that other side. Let's just focus on this one piece of paper, right? So let's say we're focusing on reading this first line. Cover up and isolate. And you can even use multiple pieces of paper to isolate if you just want to go one word at a time. Read the questions silently, answer in come, then you move down, complete statements. Now, another way to do this, if you don't need to cover up the entire thing, is line by line. Follow with your finger. Read the questions silently, answer in complete statements. Then you go down. And if you feel comfortable having something on top and these words don't confuse you, keep going. Draw a spider's web showing the spider in the center of it. Next lesson. Title, Conversation and Reproduction. Title, The Ostrich. The ostrich is in the largest of all birds. It lives in the hot, sandy deserts of Africa. Ostriches sometimes live in herds with zebras and giraffes. The nest of the ostrich is made in the sand. About 30 eggs are laid in the nest, and a number are laid outside. Those outside are broken to feed the young ones that are hatched in the nest. One of the parent birds sit on the nest at night, and the sun keeps the eggs warm in the daytime. Write a short composition telling all you can about ostriches. Now, why do I do this? I don't remember who told me, but I had a teacher tell me this trick. But also, it's exactly how we write, because we write one letter at a time to make a word. That word turns into a sentence, those sentences turn into a paragraph. So if you can read and decode a word, you can decode a sentence, you can decode a paragraph, you can decode a page, which turns into multiple pages, which turns into a book. So again, you can use a notebook paper, you can fold up the copy paper, but this month I want to challenge you to thrift some old books and form some opinions. Do you think that there is one that is better? Do you agree that, oh, obviously education is a science, should we completely throw out everything from the past? I will argue I think not. I think we should learn from the past and take what works and keep what works and just keep expanding on what makes that better. But let me know in the comments how you feel, because I'm just one opinion.